Hello, this is Dr. Marty Harris. Today's topic is traumatic brain injury, TBI. We will be covering foundational information. Allow me to begin with a quote from Dr. Deborah Smith. Quote, "About 1 million children annually experience a head injury. More than 30,000 of those injuries result in lifelong disabilities. Prior to the 1960s, most children whose brains were seriously injured died soon after the trauma. Changes in emergency treatment, imaging technology, and surgical and pharmaceutical treatments now routinely save children's lives." End quote. Our agenda includes understanding the brain, definitions, prevalence, etiology, and issues and trends. The expression is greater than the sum of its parts certainly applies to the human brain. Let's start at the top of this and read through this wonderful diagram. Divided into 4 lobes, the cerebrum represents 70% of the central nervous system. A person's ability to remember, feel, and think depends on this region. Along with the sensory motor cortex, the thalamus regulates the newborn's basic movement and is already wired at birth. The cingulate cortex, hippocampus, and the basal ganglia are also just about fully formed and control the basic functions. The frontal lobe develops gradually at the end of the first year. It coincides with the arrival of higher cognitive abilities such as reasoning and speech. The brain stem controls the necessary functions of the body, such as breathing, circulation, heartbeat, and reflexes. It is one of the 4 regions of the brain already completely wired at birth. The cerebellum controls a newborn's balance and later muscle tone. Later, this large region of the brain coordinates motor, sensory, and other functions. Active from the 2nd or 3rd month, the parietal lobe allows the child to recognize objects and have better eye-hand coordination. The temporal lobe assists with hearing, language, and smell. So it really is true that the brain is greater than the sum of its parts. We know a lot about the brain, function of lobes, dendrites' growth and maintenance, synapses and transmitters, yet there is so much more to learn. For example, why drink water? The brain needs water. The brain is 85% water. The cerebral spinal fluid is 98.5% water. The brain needs water to function. Neurotransmitters that affect who we are and how we react to the environment need water. Serotonin, the brain's master impulse modulator for all emotions and drives, it keeps aggression in line, and it needs water. Noradrenaline, the brain's alarm hormone, it recognizes danger and organizes the brain to respond to it by producing adrenaline and other chemicals. It needs water. Mapping of the brain and new technologies to map the brain have helped us understand so much more about neurology. Do you recognize Dr. Albert Einstein having an EEG? The EEG was one of the earliest technologies used to map the brain. Nowadays we have CAT scans and MRIs and PET scans, and even more technologies are being developed to get a closer look at the brain. Why do CAT scans and Beatles music go together? In the 1970s, when doctors Cormack and Hounsfield needed funding to develop the CAT scan, they went to the Beatles. Fortunately, these young, successful musicians were looking for ways to invest their musical profits. In 1979, doctors Cormack and Hounsfield won the Nobel Prize in Medicine. Just think how many lives have been saved. Just think how much we have learned about the brain from CAT scans. Now let's look at definitions for TBI. Traumatic brain injury. TBI means an acquired injury to the brain caused by an external physical force resulting in total or partial functional disability or psychosocial impairment, or both, that adversely affect a child's educational performance. TBI was first added as a federal category of disability in 1990 with the reauthorization of IDEA. In part, this category came about because, with our new technologies and medical advancements, we are now able to save children, adolescents, and adults who have significant brain injuries. The term applies to open or closed head injuries resulting in impairments in one or more areas, such as cognition, language, memory, attention, reasoning, abstract thinking, judgment, problem-solving, sensory, perceptual and motor abilities, psychosocial behavior, physical functions, information processing, and speech. Note that TBI can range from mild to severe. Some students with TBI may resemble a person who has a learning disability. Others with TBI may resemble students with multiple and severe disabilities. The term does not apply to brain injuries that are congenital or degenerative, or to brain injuries induced by birth trauma. Note, this legal definition has an exclusionary clause, just as several other federal disability definitions do. Here is a wonderful chart of the types of brain injury: congenital versus acquired. Types of acquired brain injury are addressed in this chart. Take a few minutes to read through this. Here are some very important TBI terms: concussion, contusion, skull fracture, epidural hematoma, subdural hematoma. Please take a few minutes to read through these. Prevalence. First of all, understand that TBI can happen to anyone, anywhere. TBI impact may change the intellectual functioning of the individual dramatically, and then again, it may only influence one or two specific areas of intellectual functioning. Who are in the groups at the highest risk for TBI? Males are about 1.5 times as likely as females to sustain a TBI. The two age groups at the highest risk for TBI are birth to 4 years and 15 to 19 years. Think about those age groups for a minute. Why is this true? For children birth to 4 years, it is often abuse and shaken baby syndrome that contribute to TBI. For the age group 15 to 19 years, they're teenagers, they're invincible, they take lots of risks, and they may end up with TBI. Prevalence. Students receiving special ed services for TBI. 22,509 students ages 6 to 21 years received special education services as having TBI in the 2003-2004 school year. This represents less than 0.04% of all the students in school. Out of the students with disabilities, 0.0014% have TBI. Although TBI is a low incidence disability, you may have such a student in your classroom. Although I never had a student with TBI in my 20 years of teaching in public schools, during my first 12 years as a university professor, I had one student with TBI. He came to me and said, "Before my car accident, I was exceptionally good in math and considering going into that field. Unfortunately, I lost those math talents. Now, I'm so grateful and so amazed at what my resource teachers did for me in high school. I want to be a resource teacher." A second experience that impressed me was that of a young lady whose brother was in a major car accident. After she had been absent for a while, she finally came to talk to me. She told me that she had just completed the TBI module the week before her brother's accident. She said that it was that information from the TBI module that enabled her to be her brother's advocate and get the proper health care and therapies for him. So yes, TBI is a low incidence disability. You may never have a student, relative, or friend with TBI, but just in case, you have this knowledge to fall back on. The 2007 report to the U.S. Department of Education demonstrates an increase of approximately 2,000 students with TBI, ages 6 to 21 years, receiving special education services. Etiology. What causes TBI? The common causes of TBI: for infants, abuse and neglect; for toddlers and preschoolers, abuse, neglect, and falls; for young children, falls, pedestrian and motor vehicle accidents; older children, bicycle accidents, motor vehicle accidents; sports; for adolescents, motor vehicle accidents; for adults, motor vehicle accidents. Issues and trends. First of all, medical advances. Every day, new medical advances help us understand TBI. As our veterans come home from the war with TBI injuries, we must learn more about the long-term effects of TBI and effective treatments. Another area that is under greater scrutiny concerning prevention of TBI includes examining sports, sports equipment, and sports rules and regulations. A second issue is prevention. Currently, sports for children and adolescents and adults has become very controversial concerning brain injuries. This controversy has placed greater scrutiny on numerous sports, sports equipment, sports rules and regulations. We have new information concerning sports injuries and football, soccer, hockey, bike racing, skateboarding, skiing, etc. It's time to take prevention seriously. As Pinky and the brain of Warner Brothers say,
"You got brain, you astound me!"
I'm afraid I always will, Pinky.
The brain is astounding. Let's teach children, adolescents, and ourselves to keep our brains safe and growing. Our brains are wonderful, special, and unique. That's why they need and deserve an education that is special. Thanks for listening.